you decide while you're working at the post office, you want a different job. And what lures you to Compton PD in 1968?
Well, I took 4 examinations. I went and took Santa Monica, Covina, LAPD, and Compton. I took 4 of them. You know, I figured I put as many in there as. Or Covina was really a nice city. I said, you know, I went there. I saw how nice it was, and then LAPD, because I knew some of the kids that had gone to LAPD that were in the Marine Corps with me, and in Compton because I lived in Compton, right, and I was impressed with Compton PD. It was an impressive unit of cops. So, and Santa Monica, naturally, you know, that was a beach city. Well, I flunked Santa Monica's test. Okay, I'll be truthful. I flunked it, but I passed the other 3, and so I was just waiting for whoever calls me first, and Compton called me first.
Wow. Okay. So if LAPD would have called you first, you would have went there then?
No, LA flunked me on my psychiatric. Yeah, but the same guy that flunked me, his name was Dr. Severin. He was a psychiatrist. He flunked me. He says I was immature. Okay, but that same doctor passed me 6 weeks later for Compton. So I don't know if I improved that much.
How much time had passed between?
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
So I must have made a massive improvement in 6 weeks.
So you became a part of the Compton PD when it wasn't unusual for people to get hired to be cops in the communities they lived in, right?
Right.
You don't really see that too much today.
Unfortunately, that was one of the pillars that made us who we were. We grew up in Compton. We knew the criminals. We knew the culture, and if you know the culture, Flavius Aetius, the last Roman general in Attila. Why did he beat Attila? He knew him. Why were we successful in Compton? We knew everybody.
Well, I was reading some law enforcement literature that stated that when you hire too many law enforcement from the community, it opens itself up to corruption by the cops. What do you think of that?
There's always a possibility. I'm not going to say that it's not possible, because you have friends and you're going to look the other way, or you're going to give them a break, or whatever. That does happen. That's another side of the coin, again. But on the good side is that when something happens, a murder or robbery, you know who it is. I'm going to tell you a story. The guy who lived next door to me, Joe Jones, okay? He got busted for robbery. He hit Moe's liquor store on Rosecrans. He hit it twice, and both times he pulled a robbery there. And it was well known just by his MO, his modus operandi, who it was, Joe Jones. I mean, I could have said, oh, Moe's got here. Oh, well, let me go to Joe's house. He's there. That's how familiar we were, because we knew. I mean, the guy lived next door to me, and I saw him drinking liquor that he had stole from Moe's.
See, when I talked to Reggie Wright Jr., not Senior, who you worked with, but Jr., he told me he lived in Police District 2, but they normally would not let him patrol 2. He'd have to patrol one of the, I think when he was a cop, it was 4 districts. But
right.
when you talk about it as 6 districts in the book. So he said they didn't let him patrol the community that he lived in because of this whole issue of, you know them too well.
That's a possibility. Because when I grew up, I patrolled District 2, where I grew up. So I grew up there, and I went back there with Sylvester Scott, Lorenzo, all those guys, Victor Murphy. I grew up with him. So they didn't say you can't, it's not good for you to patrol there. They put me there because they knew everybody.
Okay, so now you become Compton PD in 68. This is right around when the black gangs start to form. I think the black gangs form in 69, 1970. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
But you're right there, right before they start in
Just
Compton.
Before the transition, exactly.
Yeah.
It was beginning to form. You could tell.
But you mentioned in the book quite a few different gangsters that were operating in Compton in 68.
Yeah, you had a guy by the name of Glenn Poole. And he used to work his narcotics, his drug trade out of the Texas Playhouse, which was on Wilmington Avenue, that is. You had a guy by the name of Gaddis Franklin, who used to hang out over at the Slick Chick. and he was just a bad actor. He was probably pound for pound the toughest guy in Compton. Was Gaddis Franklin. He came out in a movie called Miracle Mile, and it shows it was actually shot in one of the penitentiaries, and it shows this guy working out in the yard, a muscle guy. That's Gaddis Franklin. So another guy by the name of John Cluchette, who ended up being part of the Soledaad 7. I don't know if you heard of that at Soledaad 7. John Cluchette was from Compton. We took him down. We put him in jail, and he was a bad actor. I mean, he was no punk, you know. So, like I said, there was a lot of those characters that were career criminals before the gangs really did formulate. That were just independent actors.
You also mentioned a guy named Peter Gunn. Was he another?
Peter Gunn was a terrifying looking dude. He looked like Isaac Hayes. Okay, he was real dark. He was bald headed, and he was big and ugly. He was ugly too, and he was a bartender, and so they put me, the cop that I was with, just to see how much salt I had in me, to go in there in that bar, and get him to show me his ID, you know. I'm going to walk in there by myself with his, and he was a notorious character, and he was known for what they call 148. That means in police talk, penal code, he liked to fight cops. You know, he didn't think nothing about knocking a cop's head off, and he was big enough to do it. His hands were like a rake.
And this is an era where a cop will challenge a guy in the streets to a fight.
Yeah.
I think you talk about one of those fights.
St. Ange, he was a tough cop. He just recently died, and he took John Bonner down. John Bonner was a tough guy, and was at a place that was a tough bar a pool hall called Sonny's Pool Hall, 500 West Rosecrans Boulevard, across from Jay's Restaurant. And I remember we went in there, and Ange would be the kind of guy that would walk in, everybody would hit the wall automatically. And if you had any dope, they would throw it down the pool table, down to one of the little schools, right? You just got rid of your Red Devils, your Black Beauties, blah, 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 your marijuana. And that's how his reputation. And Bonner told him, I ain't getting rid of nothing. In fact, if you didn't have that badge and that gun, I'd whip your butt. And so Ange says, well, we can settle that right now. And they went out back, and they punched each other out. I mean, Ange destroyed him. But it was, and then he put his belt back on, and we got back in the car. There was no hassle. And Bonner got up and said, yeah, he beat me good. It was just a different era.
Yeah, and that was actually common across the country, because my dad told me stories of that happening in New York, where you get into an argument with a cop, and the cop will just take his belt off and say, hey, let's go fight.
Let's go Fifth City.
And you came out of that era of where a cop will fight a guy on the streets.
Yeah.
Like, that's unheard of for a generation of kids like my kids.
No.
You'll never see a cop say, all right, let's go fight.
No.
Nah.
That's a bygone era. It had a pro and con there too, you know, because, you know, you had the criminal would respect you, you know, but on the other hand, you were taking it. What if you lose? I mean, you know, these guys are some raw dudes. They were not punks. They were hardcore dudes.
Well, my dad told me a story once where the cop did lose. And it was actually my uncle who fought a cop. And they went to the roof. My dad stayed downstairs. The partner stayed downstairs. And then my uncle comes walking downstairs and tells the partner, go upstairs and go get your guy. You know, that was when he lost. But I guess if you get a crazy enough dude, you can get killed, right?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, exactly. You know, but it was like I said, it's something that you had to live through it. The generation. It was just a mutual respect. If you lost a fight, you lost it. Even if you were a cop and you lost a fight, you lost it, man. You didn't go out, oh, I lost a fight. We're gonna get this guy. You just lost it. We very seldom lost.
Thanks for watching StreetTV.net. If you're not subscribed, please hit that button below and click the bell to receive alerts and notifications. Feel free to comment below so you can give us your feedback, and be sure to watch the 2 related episodes to the right. If you want to support this platform or follow us on social media, visit the links in the description, and thanks for watching StreetTV.net.